So I know it is so frustrating when a client doesn't pay you or they just stop responding to your emails or their card bounces yet again and they're not updating their payment so that you can rightfully get paid. It is a super frustrating part of being a business owner, of owning your own business. And there's nothing worse than not getting paid than not knowing what you can do about it. So in today's video, I'm going to teach you what you can do if a client stops paying you and refuses to make that payment. In case you're new here, I'm Vander Wielen. I'm an attorney turned entrepreneur who helps online coaches, course creators, and service providers just like you learn how to legally protect and grow their online businesses using my DIY legal templates and my ultimate bundle program. And in doing so, I have so many people who either purchase, legal templates from me or the ultimate bundle after they don't get paid, or I just have tons of people reaching out to me all the time on social media about this issue because it's so frustrating. And I hope that in this video, you more than anything just feel less alone about this entire issue and definitely not feeling like there's something wrong with you or you're not a good coach or that you've done something wrong, because a lot of times we can go to that place when we don't get paid. So more than anything, just please hear me that this is a normal part of doing business, of running your own business. It happens to everyone. The goal is obviously for it to not happen very often, but it happens to everyone. And there's stuff you can do about it. So let's get into it. Oh, and in case you haven't yet, make sure you hit subscribe below so that you can watch all of my YouTube videos here on YouTube every Monday and Thursday, where I share fresh legal tips and business building advice. So with that, I actually decided to break this video into two parts for you because whenever we talk about a client not paying you, there are two issues that come up in my mind for you. The first is, okay, what are we going to do to try to get you paid, right? That's the most immediate issue. That's the fire that we have to put out. And it is something that requires a little bit of, immediacy. The second part, and I think this is such a vital part of the conversation, is if a client doesn't pay you, that is always an invitation for you to look internally in your business, right? Not about you as a coach or anything like that, but in your business as to whether there's anything that you can do on the operations side, on your process or system side to make sure that this doesn't happen again or to close this loophole. So I've actually filmed a second video for you that's going to come out in about a week where I will teach you my entire prevention system method. So keep your eyes peeled for that. That's why you want to subscribe while you're here. But that is a really important part of the conversation. But for today, let's just start off by talking about exactly what steps you can take if somebody stops paying you. So the very first thing that you want to look at whenever a client doesn't pay you is, what does your contract say? I hope you have a contract, right? Any good contract, hopefully you have a good one. If you have a legal template from me, they all have, payment terms and what happens if people don't pay and what happens if they're late. But you want to have very clear payment terms in your contract for a reason, because your contract is essentially going to be like the guiding principle here. So if a client doesn't pay you, the contract is the thing that says that A, they owed you money, B, that they owed you a certain amount, and C, that they owed you a certain amount by a certain day, right? Without that, we don't really have any opportunity to hold the client's feet to the flame, right? So we have to make sure that we have a contract that very clearly and thoroughly spells out how much we're owed, when we get paid, where we get paid, and then what the consequences are of not doing so. So the way that I always like to talk to customers about this is that, any good contract should kind of talk through what the steps are of what happens, like what gets set into motion when a client doesn't pay. So is there access removed? Are there late fees or something like that? How are those assessed? And then what happens when the client finally, hopefully, rectifies the payment, right? So if a client's late and they owe you money and then a month later they pay you, do they get their access back or not, right? These are a lot of things that you get to decide as a business owner. But where a lot of people get tripped up is that they don't actually have this in writing. And so then there's a lot of wishy-washiness and resentment and feeling like, I don't know what to do about this client because they owe me money and they keep yanking me around, but I don't know what to do. Well, you wouldn't have any of that if you just had a contract because it would all be there for you in writing. If you don't have client contracts that have very clear payment terms, I would definitely encourage you to check out all of my DIY legal templates. I sell all client and course contracts a la carte. I also have them all as part of my Ultimate Bundle program. So you can check that out in the description below. Okay, so after we look at our contract, the second thing we're doing is really deciding a path. We've come to a fork in the road. We now hopefully have a contract because really without it, there's really no way to enforce this payment that you're owed. And so we've come to this fork in the road to decide, are you going to try to handle this yourself? Meaning you're going to be the point of contact. You're going to be reaching out to the client to kind of like hound them to get them to pay you. Or are you trying to outsource this? So are you trying to send this to somebody else to collect on your behalf? So I'll go over each of those in turn because each of those actually have some pros and cons. So you can reach out to a client yourself and try to collect payment. And the big pro of that is that you get to handle it very quickly. You get to kind of control like the tone of the conversation. Some people think it's like too much or too scary if you send it out to collections or an attorney, depending on the circumstances, you know. I wouldn't, by the way, recommend like somebody doesn't pay you and the next day you're like, collections. You should have a process in place, and we can talk about that in the next video. But you do want to think about like, do you want to be the person that's still having like the interaction with the customer? That's pretty important. And it can obviously be very cost effective because if you're the one who's writing the emails to the customer and you're trying to get the payment, then you don't have to give a cut of it to anybody else. You just get to keep it. However, I would encourage you to remember that that time and energy, definitely the energy, that you spend trying to collect that is something, right? You still are paying for it in a different way. The downside here is that, you know, it's just not as scary when it comes from a person. So whenever you get a letter from a lawyer, a call from a collections agency, you're always going to get people to take a little bit more action, right? Because they've probably been hearing from you. And I'm assuming why you might even be watching this video is because that's not working. So that's often, you know, you bring in the juice. Those are lawyers. You bring in the juice and you put on the squeeze to try to get them to actually pay you. That is the upside to hiring a lawyer. So now let's talk about this other option you have then. If you're not going to try to handle it yourself, you do have this other option of either sending them to collections or sending them to an attorney who does collections work, right? So there are collections agencies, like groups made up of these companies, especially now you can like find all these companies online that'll do collections work for you. Or there are attorneys near you. I'm sure if you Googled like collections attorney in your state or in your town or something like that, I'm sure you could find somebody near you. So those are options in terms of outsourcing. The big pro of that is that you get it off of your plate. And I do think it's a little bit more intimidating in a way that should work out in your favor in terms of actually getting paid. The downside is that you have to share the payment, right? So most of them will take a percentage of whatever they actually collect, and they will negotiate a settlement on your behalf. So I think something a lot of people don't know is that if they'll hire a collections agency, that agency might take less than what you are actually owed, and then you're giving away a percentage of that. So by the end of it, you're left with a much smaller amount than you think. Now, in many of these collections agencies, you can actually set the floor like as low as you're willing to accept. So that's helpful, but you're still going to accept less probably than what you're owed and give away a fee to the collections agency. So it's something to consider. As your payment numbers grow, as you're taking in a lot more payments and processing those payments, this process kind of becomes inevitable because it's just not practical for you to handle this on your own. So all of the major companies, the course creators, coaches, they have access to collections agencies, and that's what they do. It's just a system and a SOP that they have set in their own businesses that they send these things off automatically. Now, just keep in mind, if you go this attorney or this collections route, you still need that contract, right? You need that contract in place because that's going to be the thing that proves that this person does owe you the money, right? So that's a very crucial part of this conversation. If you want to learn more about which contracts that you need for your online business, what they're supposed to say, how they work to protect you, I would definitely encourage you to watch my free legal workshop called 5 Steps to Legally Protect and Grow Your Online Business. You can pick a date and time that works for you in the description below. And in it, I'll teach you my 5-step strategy on everything from contracts to how to protect the content on your website, to how to keep copycats off of your content, how to form your business or actually act like an LLC, even if you've already got one, and so much more. So it's a free legal workshop. You're going to want to grab this now. Thousands and thousands of your colleagues have taken this already, and they absolutely love it. If you just need one of those contract templates that we talked about so that you can make sure you actually have solid payment terms that are enforceable for your clients, then you're going to want to check out my legal templates or the ultimate bundle below. Now, I can't wait because in about 10 days, I have another video coming for you about how to actually prevent non-payments from even happening. There are so many things that you can do in your business to prevent it as much as possible, or to automatically collect those payments if they do fail without having to do any of the work that I mentioned in this video. So you're definitely going to want to keep your eyes peeled for that. That's why you want to hit subscribe before you go. Leave me a comment in the comments here on YouTube and let me know if this video is helpful. Until then, I'll see you later this week.